So a little over a year ago, we actually took apart a couple of game cartridges here for the Switch, mostly to see the differences between different size cartridges. For example, a 1 gigabyte cartridge and a 16 gigabyte cartridge. We actually took apart, if you remember, Resident Evil Revelations, the cartridge that came with it, because it came with a cartridge and a code, but the first Resident Evil Revelations was 12 to 13 gigabytes, somewhere in there, so they had to put it on a 16 gigabyte cartridge, which we took a look at, and then we also took a look at Axiom Verge, which was on a 1 gigabyte cartridge, I believe, because like the game is small. It's less than a gigabyte. So they put it on that. And we had two different type of cartridges. This one had a board with a chip on it. This one was just the chip on its own. And this was actually labeled with MX23K, if I remember correctly. And that was interesting enough. But, of course, most of these companies stop at 16 gigabytes. I say most because there is actually one game on the Switch that is using a 32 gigabyte cartridge. And that is, as you're seeing here, Dragon Quest Heroes 1 and 2. I imported this from Japan because I am curious to open it and see what chip is inside of here. Now, I think it's going to be similar to Revelations because it also has that kind of shaking feeling to it. So I think it's just going to be a chip inside kind of the plastic casing, but I'm curious if it's what the marking is on it and what type of chip, because I don't really think I've seen this yet anywhere. But Dragon Quest Heroes 1 and 2, after importing it, it was actually about $85-ish to get it. And if I look on the Japanese eShop, it is 9,400 yen, so it's like 84 and change when you convert it. So they just outright charged more, and that kind of shows the difference in cost between a 16 gigabyte cartridge and a 32 gigabyte cartridge, and why so many companies seem allergic to doing that, and they'd rather pass the download off to you, the consumer, especially like 2K, who ships with like an 8 gigabyte cartridge and then makes you download like 20 something gigabytes. So would you buy games if they were $85 and they all came on the cartridge? Something to ask there. I also played a little bit of the game. I'm not a big fan of kind of the Dynasty Warriors hack and slash type games, but that's essentially what it is. I played the second one a bit, and it looked pretty good on the Switch. It was fine. I know there's frame rate issues, and I could see some frame rate drops and stuff here and there, but it seemed to play all right. It was, for people who enjoy this type of games, they might like it. There's no English option on this all, though, so keep that in mind. If you decide to import this, I couldn't figure out a way to put it into English, and I looked online, and it seems like it just comes with Japanese text. So it makes it kind of difficult to play if you don't obviously know Japanese. So let's go ahead and open this guy up here, and we have basically nothing inside. It's the cartridge and a code. That's about it. And the code, I think, is mostly for like Square. It's like their club. Yeah, it's like their membership thing, so you probably get like credit for buying this guy. But let's actually open this guy up now. So we have our cartridge here, Dragon Quest Heroes 1 and 2. And I looked on the back and I noticed that it is a cartridge that has that rattling kind of chip, similar to Revelations, similar to Breath of the Wild, games that use 16 gigabyte cartridges. So I'm pretty confident this is just a chip that's laying in here. So to open this, if you remember, last time we had to use I used a blade to get in there because if I can cut around the edge, I can still save this thing. I can actually glue it back together and it works fine. Revelations, Axiom Verge, they work fine because I never actually damaged the chip itself. So we're going to start by cutting in here and seeing if I can get around it and then pop it open. Okay, so after popping it open, I do have our chip here. I'm gonna have to double check to look this up to see if anyone has identified this yet, but it doesn't have MX or anything on it like the 16 gigabyte cartridge. It's designated with HAC at the top. So I'm gonna quickly look this up. I'll get you guys some good pictures of this and we'll see what we have. So I took a look at the chip, and for the most part, there's nothing online about this at all. Like looking up the chip and it's any of the codes on it, nothing is really out there. Well, the only one that's out there, I'll show you a picture of it here, a very zoomed in picture, and anyone out there can actually take a look at this and see what they can find as well, as this was mostly opening up and seeing what we have in there. But the only one that really pops up is the HAC BABKA, and that's mostly like firmware revision on the cart itself, and that's actually, you can actually find that on the back of your box art. That's on it for pretty much all of them. Generally, it's above the rating. I think it's a bit different for this one. I think it's off to the left. And then we have R20RG54, I think that's a 1, not a dash, 10E-103. That, and then the one below that that starts with 70 are ones that are not, I can't find them online. Now, R20 is, you can actually find that on the Switch, but that points to chips that are smaller than a gigabyte or smaller cartridges, as the ones that are a little larger are handled by Micronics. That's usually how you see like the MX on there, MIX. And we see that with Zelda Breath of the Wild, for example. We saw that with Resident Evil Revelations Collection. And they handle the ones that are mostly like this, that are just the chip with the pins on the bottom of it. The other ones that has a board, which is a TSOP48, that's generally handled by, I think, Oki Semiconductor, and that's usually when you see like nothing on it generally. So what I'm thinking is what happened here is that Square, I guess, wanted this to just be on a cartridge, and they had no issues with, well, in that case, a higher price. So I guess maybe they went to Oki and said, hey, let's build this thing. Let's just make this. We'll charge more, and it'll be a custom chip that we have in ours, because this isn't found in anything else. That's the only thing I could think of that happened here. But I am interested, as I didn't see any pictures of this online that I could find. So maybe someone out there who's a bit more familiar with this kind of stuff, especially on like Switch Brew and everything, can take a look at it and maybe come to a better conclusion. And I also posted a higher resolution screenshot on Twitter that you can check out on my Twitter handle. You can check that out there as well. So maybe we'll find a bit more information about these 32 gigabyte cartridges and why I guess a lot of these developers are completely allergic to them, mostly for pricing. Maybe we could figure some of that out, see how much more it really costs, because this is an $85 game, not a $60 game. But it also comes with 2 games, I guess, but you can also get them on the PS4, so interesting stuff, though. I'm going to put this back together. Pretty easy to put these back together, by the way. I guess people want to take these apart. You can put them right back in, and then you glue it. I usually use go-to glue, like this guy here. Some people use super glue, and that's fine, too. But go-to glue, Loctite, works fine. Generally, I just close it right back up, put some around the edges, and it'll seal fine. It's not super glue to the point where it will basically, like, it'll merge it, essentially. It's not that strong, but it's strong enough for, like, a little chip like this. We used to use these for like iPads and stuff when you put them back together, just for extra hold, and it works fine. So you put that kind of around the edges with like a toothpick, you flip it upside down, you put like a heavy book on it for like an hour, you pick it back up, and you'll have a cartridge back together. Like I said, these two have been fine, no issues, and they work fine too. So just don't get it on the connector at the bottom. But let me know what you guys think about this down below. It was an interesting thing to look at, as 32 gigabyte cartridge is barely in existence. Like I said, just in this one cartridge here, Dragon Quest Heroes 1 and 2. Thanks guys for watching. Make sure you like the video if you like it, dislike it if not, and get subscribed, because we'll do all kinds of cool little teardowns and experiments like these two. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.